Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new books by indie authors. Your hostess for today's show is Rox Burkey. We do hope you enjoyed today's show.
Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, and I'm Rox Burkey. Tonight, I have an absolute delightful conversation planned with my good friend, John James Lynn. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Rox. Thank you very much.
You know, John, I think it would really be good for people out there to learn a little bit about you. So if you don't mind, take a couple of minutes and kind of, share with them a little of your background and how you got on the journey of writing.
All right. Well, I was born in Iowa, but I won't go through that whole process. But but there are a lot of writers in Iowa, actually. And becoming a meteorologist along the way was the beginning of the journey. I was interested in astronomy and meteorology, and turned out meteorology won out. And so I was staring at the stars and the clouds and so on, and studying. And my studying took me out to San Jose, California, San Jose State University, and I became interested after I finished school. I was still working there. I was working while I was in school part-time at a location up in Palo Alto, a beautiful territory. And I along the way saw some of the missions and visited and so on. And so that was the first inspiration. And also there's a Sutro tower. There's a Sutro family. And there's a tower on the way to San Francisco, on the south edge of San Francisco. And another gentleman there he asked me to assist him in mounting instruments, meteorological instruments, on the platform toward the top of the tower. And the elevator ride up the tower is pretty interesting. The view from up there is unmatched. You're above the fog, and sometimes it clears, and you can see the whole bay and so on. So anyway, that was an inspiration then. And when I got through studying as a meteorologist, and I moved, and I started thinking, what else do I want to do? The Sutro Tower, the location, I had gone back to work out there, became the center point of my first story, Sutro. And it's a romance. Two folks meet up, college student and a woman that's working with television instrumentation up there, towers that are up on the tower now, TV antennas up there. Right. So anyway, it inspired that romance. So that's really what got the whole thing going.
There you go. I mean, it's fascinating. Plus, you have the whole San Andreas Fault thing going on when you're in California. So, I mean, that's always an exciting thing.
Yeah, that's right.
So I know Sutro was your first one, but I kind of want to know what made you to decide to focus on For Posterity.
For Posterity was really a culmination of I had written several short stories, and really was having more success with readers, the small awards, and began to realize that really that's what seems to come out the best, is something that's maybe just 10 pages long or whatever. And so I had quite a few of them compiled, and really it was brought to my attention, maybe I should put together an anthology. So really that's what I ended up doing. And For Posterity, it was really sort of the thesis of the story. Some of it's about families and how stories transcend in writing, and through the ages, different generations. First stories called Generations. And so that's where the title came about, For Posterity.
You know, I really like that. And I like the story that you've told behind it. I also found that the mixture between short stories and poetry was really compelling. When you originally put that anthology together, was that your intention?
Not necessarily. I had written mostly short stories, and actually the poetry won some awards, small awards, but so that, I was told that should be in your anthology, right? So told by other writers.
So there you go. So the cover for Posterity is a very unique cover. Obviously, there's a center focal point in the very middle. How did you come upon that design for that cover?
Well, we call these things chance meetings with, in this case, an artist named Mary Allison, but no one, it seems that no one, just a little sidelight, all the Marys I've met have been spectacular people, but they don't seem to want to use they don't seem to like that name. So she's M. Allison. But I met her at just a church gathering, and she gave me her card, and then I had these short stories, and I thought, wouldn't it be nice if we could illustrate it somehow? And I talked to her, and I had her read the stories, and she went ahead and she said, "Oh, I like them." And so she illustrated. It's there before each story. There's an illustration, and that's also her painting that she hasn't sold that painting, by the way. That's on for Posterity. For some reason, it was a personal thing for her, and so yeah, it's pretty special. She's a great artist. She's very good, talented.
It's amazing. So do you display some of the other interior graphics on your website for people to enjoy, or do they just need to get the whole book?
Well, generally they need to get the whole book, but on Facebook I do bring up some of those images from time to time, birthdays and so on. I'll shoot them out there, but yeah, the best thing is to get the book. Right.
There you go. So how long did it take you to decide from the first story that you wrote to assemble it into an anthology and get it out there? I mean, was it a long time thing, or was it pretty fast?
It for me to assemble it with the help of even my daughter, who's more of a gifted writer and just writing in her blood, and not a meteorologist per se, although she is a scientist. But with help, I was able to put the short stories together in a few months. What interested me was Allison. When I sent the stories over and she started to draw the sketches, they were coming back to me almost the next day, even a couple of them right away. And so I asked her after about 4 or 5. I said, "Allison, are you really, are you paying full attention or something like this?" And then I didn't hear a thing from her. And I talked to another gentleman, and he said, "Oh my gosh, this is a polished, seasoned artist, and you've probably hurt her feelings. You're going to have to apologize, maybe, or get back in her graces." So she was the one that was. I couldn't believe how quickly she drew the sketches for each of the stories. It was amazing, and folks do like the sketches. They'll tell me that. So.
Well, I think it's because the stories are also compelling. So I would agree that she's a gifted artist, and having those things come together makes this book extra special.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much. And I agree. It is unusual, very unusual.
So we're going to take a short break, John, and hear from our sponsors, and we will be right back. So stick around.
Hi, my name is Elle Ballard, and I'm the founder of Women of the World Network, a supportive entrepreneurial community of multinational women. I'm excited to announce we have second series launching for our anthology, Recipes for Body, Mind, and Soul, on April 7th. If you'd like to participate in any of our future anthologies or just check out our community, visit womenoftheworldnetwork.com.
Welcome to V4R Store, a bookstore for indie readers and indie authors, where indie authors can earn their fair share from the books you purchase. We have a wide variety of genres that you can select from. We also have ebooks and paperbacks. You can select authors by their first names, and we also have music. If you're interested in their city or country, we have that listed as well.
If you are an author and would like to be on our bookstore, we have 3 options for you. There is a small minimal charge, or you can join our organization at authorsmarketing.org and learn how to better market and sell yourself. That is V4R Store, a bookstore for indie readers and indie authors.
Hi, I'm Charles Brakefield.
And I'm Rox Burkey.
Together, we write as Brakefield and Burkey.
Our techno thriller series is 12 books strong, with book 13, The Enigma Tracer, planned for 2022.
Techno thrillers are the cyber good guys versus today's darknet thugs.
We added our series prelude, Out of Poland, a 1939 historical novella, in 2021.
We also have 8 short stories available in family and women's contemporary genres, with more planned for 2022.
Please visit our website, enigmaseries.com, to learn more about why we say technology is today's weapon of choice. Thank you.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new books by indie authors. Your hostess for today's show is Rox Burkey. We do hope you enjoy today's show.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Show, and I'm here to continue my discussion with author John James Lynn. So John, I had such a good time talking about For Posterity, and I really do recommend that folks take a look at this book and actually get this book. It's amazing. But I wanted to go ahead and talk about the other book we wanted to focus on today, and that is the El Camino Real. So let's kind of give some background as to where this particular book is located.
Where it's located as far as where it can be purchased, or
No, where the physical place. El Camino Real
right,
is
okay,
a very
El Camino,
long.
yes. It's really the El Camino Real, and there are other roads, in Texas. El Camino Real, as this is in California, and it's located. The Spanish missions are along El Camino Real, and now Highway, the 101, as they call it, pretty much trails up in north-south across central and southern California, and so that's where the El Camino Real, or El Camino Real, is located, is in California, right? And along the missions are along the way, along the pathway.
So you bring up a good point. So the book is about the missions.
It deals with the missions, but actually, really, no, it's not about the missions. It's about, the idea came from, I was in San Jose. I looked up into the 3rd floor of some apartments. There's a family, and it was lit. It was evening, and so they were just having some type of conversation. It was just a goings on. There was nothing that was frantic, but I thought, what would it be like just to be transported, to be in the midst and just become part of that, just like a snap of the finger. And so that's really the idea of the story, is it's a mistaken identity, and El Camino Real provides them the power and the mystery in making these mistaken identities occur with the main characters, in this case Jonathan and Maribel. So
it's very interesting. And did you pattern these characters after someone specific?
Not particularly. They might have been drawn up because of maybe some frustrations with some people I knew, but no, they came from somewhere in the back of the mind, and I felt that they were pretty well developed, and because of that fact, they're not anybody in particular, so I was able to develop them, and of course they traveled El Camino Real, met each other. She is from a couple centuries earlier, and she's along El Camino Real, and then finds herself in more of a our present day, and meets Jonathan, the main character.
So time travel is a very interesting concept to write about, and it's sometimes difficult. Did you find it a challenge to deal with the multi dimensions of that?
Well, what I found where I found the challenge was as I'm going through, and they do, of course, they travel back to Maribel's her time frame,
Right.
and say early 1900s, late 1800s, and then forward into, and what I found interesting, brought them together, was forward into both of their futures, into our future. And as I moved into that future, like a chapter called The Land of Glass, which is say 9 or 10 millennia ahead, then to continue the misidentification, and that process became a little more difficult, a little trickier than it was with present day and past. But I managed it.
Yeah, so Maribel actually started down this path from the days when it was the Spanish who really had inhabited that area. So it gave her a total different perspective and an old world perspective that I thought you really pulled together very nicely as you came into more modern day. That's not easy. Did you do a lot of research to do this?
I certainly did. I certainly had to go back, read back, and learned about a lot about, of course, the character, the building of the missions, what the Spanish and even Argentines did, the pirates. I had to learn about them, and I also found through native of Bakersfield that eucalyptus was brought to California around 1850. My story actually goes a little bit earlier than that with Maribel. So I had to edit out the eucalyptus. I thought I better edit out, he's right. I mean, the trees weren't there. So, so you learn things as you go. You definitely do. So.
And I think that's what's so fascinating about this. I think even though it's a fictional time travel, it really is a learning experience with a nice, gentle dose of history, which is, I found fascinating.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And it was certainly fascinating writing this and going back and seeing what the interactions were along the pathway and the missions, and how the folks interacted. Spanish interacted back then. There were Indians. There was a lot of things going on, so it's interesting.
Certainly, no internet.
No Googling.
No Googling. So, when you were putting this together, who was like your best readers, and kind of making sure that you were pulling the best pieces in and keeping you like on the road?
Actually, there was a group, and it's too bad, but there's still a group on Facebook, the Garden of Poetry and Prose. I mean, they can be found on Facebook. We call it the Garden. But there were some very excellent, and there are some excellent writers, just that they're not pitching out their little short stories. And of course, a lot of them were really fine poets. And there was one woman in Kansas, I was told right at the very beginning, her name was Susan. I was told by the lady that pretty much ran the show on the Garden, this is the best writer you'll find, and I really hadn't thought about that. But then when she saw what I was doing with El Camino Real, she says, "Why don't you send me the whole thing? It needs editing. It needs editing. Let's start with me." So I was very fortunate to have a person like this. And she didn't ask for payment. I paid her anyway. So another lady in South Africa, of all places, picked up on it, and she was able to edit more from this perspective of what's believable and what isn't with the male-female experiences and relationships and so on. It was very, very helpful. So those were some of the sources I had helping me.
No, I think that's excellent. because it is difficult sometimes to not only take on a challenge like time travel, because it's an easy fiction to kind of mess yourself up if you don't have a little guidance. But the male female thing, that's a good perspective. So that's very, very interesting. The cover on this one is also very different. So you chose on this particular one almost to have an amusement park.
Right. And this again, M. Allison's painting. And little sidelight, she had a few paintings. She was in Houston. Now she's up at Horseshoe Bay, northwest of Austin. Llano country, Llano wines and so on up there. And but she said, hey, just once you take the painting that where this cover is taken from, it's just had to be adjusted a bit to fit the cover, but that's the painting. It's her painting. And so I hung it on the wall, and it had a little price tag of $2,000. And my daughter would come over and say, it would make her nervous, like, when are you going to give the paint? When are you going to give the painting back? Because she just made her a little nervous. But anyway, that's the inspiration was the Ferris wheel is a big part of the latter portion of the story. It plays into the story and the time travel and so on. So when I saw that, I was helping her with a fair, a gallery, a small gallery, art gallery, and I had my books in there, and when I saw that painting, I said, "Oh, this just seems to fit my story." So
there you go. And John, you have been fascinating, but we've got to take another short break to hear from our sponsors. When we come back, I want to kind of talk about how people can find you, where people can find your stories. So stick around.
Each and every one of us has a mission in life. Mine is to help people laugh through the good times and the bad. My name is Charlotte Canyon, and I'm an author, a speaker, and a host on Indie Beacon Radio. If you need me to speak at an event or autograph my book, you can contact me at charlotte@charlottecanyon.com. Thank you, and have a blessed day.
Authors Marketing International, a membership-based organization where members learn how to better market and sell themselves. Join us at authorsmarketing.org. Hi, this is Beyond Bourgeois. I am the founder and director of the V4R Bookstore. We are in our warehouse, and as you can see behind me are some of the books that we have for the short story contest that we run annually. It begins March 1st and runs through July 31st. Of course, if you win, you get copies of the books you're published in, the anthologies, and they go out to libraries and schools. So a great way to discover new readers. Check it out, V4R.store, and good luck. Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new books by indie authors. Your hostess for today's show is Rox Burkey. We do hope you enjoyed today's show.
Welcome back to the Indie Beacon Show. And I have been having such a fun conversation with the author, James Lynn, author of, a couple of great stories. Actually, he has more than these, but we've been talking tonight about For Posterity and El Camino Real. But he also did Sutro that he mentioned when we first started this particular show. So, John, of those three, which of these is your favorite?
I would say probably El Camino Real. Probably it's the most recent. And by the way, there is a fourth I should mention, which these are all posted on Amazon. And it's called Standing Room Only, and it's a story about a boy coming of age in the Midwest. So I'll just mention the fourth one that's there. Someone was to be looking, but probably El Camino Real was the most fun, probably in the writing. And when critique groups, when they looked at the first 15, 20 pages, I got very little criticism, which is very unusual for any usual critique group. So I could tell at least it was starting off running. It just starts off literally running. And so I enjoy that.
No, that's terrific. What I found interesting about El Camino Real, and it is available on Amazon, you have a leather bound version of this particular story. That's very interesting. Why did you decide to do a leather bound, like a journal or?
Yeah, pretty much. We're talking about El Camino Real, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Right. Just because a bit of a journal, right? That's probably the best answer.
Okay, so your books are available on Amazon, and you also have a website, John. What is your website in case people want to explore a little bit more about you?
JohnJLynn.com is the address at JohnJLynn.com. Pretty simple. And the woman who pretty much built the website, with my feed input, that was her idea. Keep it simple, John. She said, keep it simple. And that's where the books can be found. Also, I am a weather person. And I've got a lot of blog posts on there about weather events, especially hurricanes, but also other types of weather events. So, and the short stories that I've written are there as well. So quite a bit to be found on the website.
And I think that's amazing. You also have other social media presence that people can find you on. What is the target for that?
Well, they can find me, as I say, Facebook is the main other one that I use, and there's a page there, for posterity page that a lot of folks come and look at, and I'll bring up the sketches there, and people come and look at the page, and they tend to really key into those sketches and get a lot of likes and so on with that page.
So in the last couple of minutes, John, what advice can you give to someone who really hadn't planned to be a writer like yourself, and yet here you have 4 books out and available on Amazon?
What is my advice? I would say I'd say really, like we're told in the Writer's Guide, we're told to listen to our own heart and really write the story. If it's you have the story and it's churning there, before you do much editing or have it critiqued. Write the story, and that way, no matter what someone does, and it may have to be changed and even some of it rewritten, it is there. If you have it in your heart and your mind to do it first, and then listen later. That's my advice.
I think that's terrific advice, John. And I want to thank you for being with us this evening. Folks, I would recommend that you dash out to Amazon, pick up For Posterity, taste some of those short stories because they're really awesome. And then move on to El Camino Real and learn about John. I think he's going to be a wonderful author to follow. So I want to thank you, John. And I hope we get to chat again.
I look forward to it.
Thank you for watching the Indie Beacon Show, produced by B. Allen Bourgeois for the Authors Marketing International, LLC. Copyright 2022. Voiceover by B. Allen Bourgeois. If you would like to be a sponsor of the show, please contact us at authorsmarketing@outlook.com. If you would like to be on this show, it is free to authors. Simply fill out the form at indiebeacon.com. The music is provided by Happy Follows. The music is entitled